Jenny, and good morning, everybody. I'm Ed Leahy, the director of the Omaha EITC Coalition. We're grateful for your presence today on this webinar to learn a little bit about our new calendaring system. We are ready for tax season despite a rather chaotic year and a few details left to put on the icing on the cake, as it were. But we are looking forward to a banner year in our new facility, the VITA Center at Bellevue University, a collaboration between Family Housing and the Coalition, of which we are a program of family housing. So this year there are a few new twists and turns, not only with the tax law, but with our calendaring system. And Ginny will walk us through those points, and then afterwards we will attempt to post this recording or do another if need be on our website and send it out a link to all. Thank you again, and here's Ginny.
So again, I am Jenny Powell. I'm the Assistant Director at the Coalition. And I'm also the one who usually gets stuck with all of our IT stuff. So it's not a good sign that nothing wanted to work for me. But I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Hopefully you are now seeing my screen. And I am going to just walk us through a little bit about scheduling appointments. Our appointments are made online. They are all through a system that you can access through our website, and that is omahaeitc.org. When you go to our page, it'll look like this. You see a little blurb about us. It's going to point out that we have moved with directions to our main location there off of Harvell Drive in Bellevue. And to schedule the appointment, you're going to scroll down a little bit and you're going to see the options to do in-person appointments or the Tax 360 Secure Drop. That is the one where people upload documents online, we prepare their taxes, they review and sign online. But we're focusing on in-person appointments today. So these are people who still feel most comfortable coming into the office and meeting one-on-one with a preparer. So you're going to click on that in-person appointment button. And it's going to bring you to the schedule a tax appointment screen. There's a lot of verbiage on here. This is mostly for people who would be doing it themselves when they go through our website. I know you're probably not going to read all of this. There's another page of it. To people, I will summarize some of the most important parts here in just a moment. You'll see that yellow button. That's where you go to actually schedule. And then below that, it has a list of our locations, just in case people want to, before they even get into this system, say if they have a preference or ask where sites are, those locations are listed right there. So our basic requirement of people filing taxes with us is that we cannot do any non-resident returns. So that means no international, foreign student, or Puerto Rico returns. We are not certified in those. So if somebody says, oh, I'm a foreign student, we would not be able to do those returns. They would need to go to the IRS website and look to see where there are locations that can handle those kinds of returns. We do not schedule amendments, which is having to change a return that was already filed, or do returns prior to 2022 through our online system. Those are things that they need to call us if they need to do those so that we can make sure there's going to be the person that can handle that and that we have the time to do those. If they're married, both the taxpayer and spouse must be present if they are filing together. We do need photo IDs and Social Security cards or ITINs for the taxpayer and spouse, and Social Security or ITINs for all dependents on the return. They need to have all of their documents. And just as a reminder, this is VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, and that is intended for low to moderate income families, which is typically under $65,000. That income is not a hard line. It is a guideline to make sure that people do fit within our parameters, that we are serving those who need us the most, as opposed to those who maybe could afford to have somebody prepare their taxes. So if somebody isn't sure, if they're somewhere around there, that's fine. If they make $300,000, they are not our customer. But they made $75,000, we're going to go ahead and serve them. That's not an issue. So to schedule that appointment, once you click that button, it's going to pull up this screen. It's going to ask if the person certifies that they are a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or have lived in the U.S. more than 5 years, so they are able to file a resident tax return, and that they need to file an original tax return, not an amendment, for the years 2022 through 2025. If they answer yes to that, we're going to move on to scheduling the appointment. You'll see all of our locations below that. And in parentheses after the site, we have just a general guide of when the site hours are for that site. That way, if somebody says, I'm only available on Fridays, you could look on here and say, well, then the only site you can go to is the Omaha Habitat for Humanity. Does that work for you? So that we can get a little bit of a sense before you move on to the actual appointment. You are going to choose where they want on this screen. And then it's going to move on to the next stage of actually picking the date and time. If they say no to that, you're going to get a message that says, we are not able to schedule your appointment online. If you were a non-resident, go to that irs.gov. And if you need to file before 2022, you need to call the office and leave a message. But hopefully they said yes. And we're moving on then to getting their name and phone number. Name and phone are required. If they do not have a phone number, you can put in the 555, but you're going to have to put something there. An email is strongly preferred because that way they get the confirmation email of their appointment that has more information on it, has the address, has a link to documents they could fill out beforehand. So we always would like people to put that email in and get the confirmation email. Then they're going to say what years they need to file, if it's that 22, 23, 24, 23 through 25, whatever fits there. And they're going to say if they need their appointment in English or Spanish or either one. We cannot promise that if they select Spanish that we will have a Spanish speaker available, but we will do our best to accommodate them. Also, when you get to this page, you'll see over in the top right, there's a little flag and it says English. If you are a Spanish speaker and you are working with a Spanish speaker, you can change that to Spanish there, and it will then, all of this will be in Spanish for them. If you are not a Spanish speaker, so that wouldn't be helpful for you, but you were helping somebody who is maybe a Spanish speaker, if you choose Spanish, it will have some of that verbiage that then gets into their email that talks about those rules, requirements. That will be in Spanish instead of English. Then you're going to come on down to where you can pick your appointment. Where it says January in that little calendar, you can use the up and down arrows to go and pick a different month. Over on the dates, you can scroll down through those to pick a different day, or the little arrows that you see over to the right by that 11 o'clock button. If you can click those, that'll take you to the next available day if they didn't want that day. Then you're just going to go ahead and pick what time they're interested in. There are multiple slots for each time, but if a time is grayed out, or if there isn't a time there, or if a date is grayed out, it means there are no appointments available on that day. We do have things fill up, so it could be possible that there are not appointments, but then somebody may cancel and open something back up. Or we may have more preparers than anticipated, and so we're able to add more appointments in later. So just because there's not an appointment available on their preferred day the first time, there may be something available later if they go back and check. After you've selected that time, if you're right in the middle of it and they say, oh, wait, I forgot, I have a doctor's appointment at 10 a.m., you can cancel that selection and pick a different day. If they say overall, oh, I don't want to wait 3 weeks to be seen at the VITA Center, I'd rather just go to Habitat, you can choose a different site instead by clicking one of those buttons. When you do that, just on the kind of system that we have set up, if you instead selected DCHA, it's going to take you back to this screen again where you have to enter their name and phone number over again. So just be aware of that. It will loop you back because it's a different form entirely for a different site. But they have picked their site, their time, it's what you want. You're going to click that green button to go ahead and schedule the appointment. And then they'll get a confirmation screen that lets you know that it went through, that that appointment was scheduled. It's going to have on there the date, the time, and the location in that. You can always print this out for somebody if you're helping somebody in an office. If they do not have an email, that would be extremely helpful so that they do have that confirmation that they can remember when their appointment is. But they will also get a confirmation email if they put that email in there. Here's an example of one. It's going to have the information that they filled out, the location. It has a link to the customer tax forms. That link will have in there our intake sheet that they will need to fill out. It will have a list of things they need to bring, and I'll show you that in a second. It has a Schedule C readiness form. So if somebody has some self-employment, they are a small business owner, they drive Uber, they could have that filled out beforehand. It also has a Schedule E readiness form in there. So that is if they own a rental property. And so they, have grandma's house that they now rent out to people. They would be able to capture their income and expenses on that. If they fill those forms out beforehand, they do need to be able to print them out and bring them into the office. There's no automatic upload of those. So if they don't have the capacity to print them out or they don't have a computer to fill those out, that's fine. They're going to get all of those at the appointment. It just makes things go a little faster if they've done it beforehand, but it is not required. Below that, there is a link to cancel or change the appointment, a little edit submission link. So if later they decide that, oh, you know what, I did forget about that doctor's appointment, they could go in there and reschedule using that link. And then for this location, the VITA Center, since it is new, there's a little map showing people how to actually get to their office because it's a little strange. You have to go through another parking lot to get to us. So that will help guide them in there. In that customer documents, these have not been updated yet. There will be the 2025 in there come tax time. But you can see those are all of the things that are listed. They are fillable PDFs so that people could go ahead, type in their answers and print them out. One of the things that will be listed on the updated tax document checklist, which this has not been updated yet, is for people to bring in their last pay stub of the year if they are people who worked overtime or were paid tips, because employers are not being required to provide that information to people this year, and that is part of the new tax law that passed, that part of that income can be excluded, but we have to know what that income was in order to be able to do that, and we need some kind of documentation to show our work in case the IRS comes knocking to say, why did you take off this $8,000? They would have that pay stub to show this is where it came from. So that would be very helpful. Also, if the person doesn't have an email, that is not a required field, so you can leave it blank. Please do not put our email, do not put your email in there. Just leave it blank if they do not have an email or do not want to share it. So if this isn't working for you, please make sure your pop-up blocker is off, at least for this site. I actually had that when I was testing it just the other day. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't moving to my next screen of being able to pick the date and time. My pop-up blocker was on. And as soon as I turned that off, it was fine. Sometimes you may have a browser that just for some reason is not liking it, and you can just switch to a different browser and it will work. If it's not working at all, it could be possible that too many people are trying to get on the system at once. So close the window and try again. And you can always check your security settings, make sure they're set on medium so that this can get through any security settings that you have. If they need to reschedule or delete an appointment, the preferred method is for them to use that link in the confirmation email. That way they can immediately reschedule. It changes the appointment automatically on our end as well, which opens up that earlier slot. They will have the confirmation change. And so that way they can do it all themselves. They can otherwise call 211 to schedule a new appointment and then either have 211 email myself the old appointment that needs to be canceled, or they can call us and leave a message saying that they no longer need that old appointment, whichever one it is. We would definitely prefer the email method. When we get calls, it's very hard for us during tax season to stay on top of those messages. So if there's any way possible that they can do it on their own, that would be best. But if not, just go ahead and have it passed on to us and we'll take care of it on our end. Sometimes we have customers that have more special circumstances. They're going to ask, do I need to bring XYZ to the appointment? If you think it's important, bring it. Okay. And we would rather have more than we need than to not have something that we needed, which means they wind up having to leave and come back another time. So when in doubt, have them bring the document. I have a really special circumstance. What should I do? For the most part, people's circumstances are not as special as they often think they are. However, if they are concerned that they would not maybe fit our requirements, they can call and leave a message. Again, it might take us a little bit of time to get back to them because we get hundreds of calls a day during tax season. But if they leave us a detailed message, we will get back to them to see if we can assist them with their circumstance. They may want to know if they can file for a deceased family member. Yes, they can, but they would need to bring in a death certificate. If they can file for someone who can't be there for some reason, if they want to do that, they need to have a power of attorney signed. That's the IRS power of attorney, Form 2848. This is not a matter of convenience. This needs to be a matter of the person truly cannot come in and file their taxes on their own. Maybe they are in assisted living care and they're not able to get out by themselves. They're in the hospital. They are incarcerated. These are the kinds of things that would be legitimate reasons for using a power of attorney. They just wanted to stay home with the kids. Not a great reason for doing a power of attorney. And we say that because people should understand their taxes and know what's going on with their money. So we really want people involved in the process, not to have a proxy who handles things. People are going to ask, can I do an amended return, ITIN, non-resident return? Yes, potentially, not a non-resident return. They would need to call again and leave a detailed message, and we would get back to see what we can do, because not all sites and not all preparers can handle certain things. And sometimes they'll say, I got a letter from the IRS or the state. What do I do? Again, call and leave a detailed message, and we will get back to them. Sometimes it's something fairly simple that can be handled over the phone or resolved easily. Sometimes we may need to have them come in for a longer appointment to do a little forensic taxes to see what might be going on in their situation. So if they have something like that, it is much better for them to call first and have us talk to them so that we can tell them everything they might need to bring to an appointment. Because sometimes when they show up with those, we're only getting the letter and not all the documentation behind it that we would need to fix the issue. So that is how we go through scheduling those appointments. We love it when our customers can schedule their own appointments, of course, but we know that a lot of our people are not tech savvy, don't have regular email access, don't have regular computer access, or just nervous about using the computer for something that is fairly important to them. So we deeply appreciate the fact that there are individuals out there willing to help our customers schedule these appointments so that they can stay tax compliant, so they can get their refunds faster and safer, and so they aren't going to paid preparers where maybe they're not only paying but also losing money to things like refund anticipation loans.